Densberger.
Here.
Jeffers.
Here.
Call.
Here.
Mayor Migas.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. We have a working session to talk about wind turbine movements and rental registration and whatever else Ty wants to talk about. So Ty? Dennis, starting with you.
I get to go first.
I
get
guess
to be
you do. Thank you.
A short, brief meeting and communication to let you all be aware of what's happening. I'm sure you've seen the railways bringing in these wind turbines. If you haven't, when you leave and go down Washington Street, if you look to your right, you'll notice a giant pile of white fixtures, which are all wind turbines. They've been bringing them in since early April. Staging them there to be able to take them out of here. They're actually headed towards Walnut, Illinois. For whatever reason, they picked our rail yard to come in. Here they are. So I'll kind of get a little bit of history out there for you. So each wind turbine has 9 sections. That's 4 tower sections, 3 blades, a hub, and a nacelle, which is basically the generator piece of the turbine. All of those pieces will be flowing out of here, 2 per day. Starting June 25th. They may want to back that up by 1 week and begin a week earlier with beginning those getting those transported out of here. The units themselves, that's, if you do the math, that's 18 trucks per day coming out of that rail yard. They'll be coming out on Columbia Street, which is right beside the railroad tracks, turning right onto East Washington Street. They'll go to Main Street, and they'll turn left on Main, and then they'll take Main all the way out to 24, and then head on out from there beyond city limits. Our main concern as far as the city's function of this piece has been Columbia Street and Washington Street. IDOT's taken the lead on everything that's North Main, and everything else for the rest of the trip, for the most part, is all functioned through them. It's the only piece we really have control or say-so of. So we've had quite a few meetings, calls. We currently have a weekly conference call set up right now to discuss anything that could possibly come up between now and the start of this, as well as going through the entire project to make sure that if we have issues or problems, they're addressed in a timely manner so that we can make whatever changes or arrangements that need to be made. So basically, of those 18 pieces, they've divided it down into the 4 smallest pieces. There's really not any time limitations. They're shorter trucks. They can get out and get through those intersections with minimal traffic impact. So there's no provisions on anything for those 4 pieces moving a day. The other 14 pieces, however, are the long blades and the long tower sections. They will be moving only at this point between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. So they will be exited beyond Camp Street prior to a 6 a.m. deadline. So they won't affect any of our commuter traffic, hopefully none of our morning traffic or any of other traffic that's going on during that early parts of the day. IDOT helped us work with them to kind of come up with a time frame as to when it was going to work. Their original proposal was to take 9 trucks out of here between 9 and noon, and 9 more trucks out of here between noon and 3 or 4 in the afternoon, which would have completely gridlocked most all of downtown traffic. So we've worked with them to try to come up with something that's agreeable. Especially Sergeant John Cam with the police force has helped in discussions with these to make sure that they're in agreement on this piece of it, to make sure that we can get these out of here and keep the impact as small as we can. So the longest one of these trucks will be 204 foot. That's each one of the blades. So there'll be 6 of those traveling out of here on a daily basis. The tallest is 15 foot tall. And the heaviest piece, which is the generator piece, which is called the nacelle, is 258,000 pounds, and it'll be a 13-axle truck going out of here and following that entire route to get out of town. So that total, there's 106 of these towers coming out, starting on June 25th. They hope to be finished the last full week, or the first full week in September. Is their deadline. So they will not be moving on holidays, so they will not move on the 4th of July. They will not move on Labor Day. Otherwise, they'll be doing this every single day of the week, Monday through Friday, getting all these moved out of here. So that's a little over 900 semis, plus each one of these has at least 1 or 2 civilian escorts plus state police escorts. So there'll be a lot of traffic when these are going out of here. So I think the plan right now is we're going to be closing some of the roads at that time at 2 o'clock in the morning so that they can start pulling the trucks out. The police department's arranged to have, looks like 4 officers come in to be able to set barricades up to kind of to stop the traffic so that they can just go through the lights and get these trucks out onto North Main in as quick of a convoy as they can get them pulled out. With that being said, if they get 4 or 5 trucks out, they may have to let some traffic go and then, you know, stop it again and let 4 or 5 more trucks out until they get all these out of here. The weekly calls, will expand that if needed. The city's been pretty insistent that we will not go anything beyond 6 a.m. All trucks would be north of Camp Street before 6 a.m. So regardless, if they start backing up to midnight, that would be something we can discuss weekly as they push on, if they need additional time. But we've been pretty insistent on making sure they're out of downtown area to keep as much traffic out of this time period as we can. I don't know that I have a whole lot else. I know I'm working with the legal department to make sure we've got an agreement in place where we've got protection for whatever damage might be done to the street in the process of this, as well as to make sure that the police department's being reimbursed for their overtime that they're going to need to be able to cover this.
I was going to mention that the agreement, that'll be before you, most likely at your next council meeting. Doing a one agreement, typically Dennis would do that for each individual truck move. Obviously, we don't want to do that with this number of truck moves. And just so you kind of get the scale with, you got a truck that long, they're actually going to go out, when they make the left turn from West Washington onto Main Street, they're actually going to turn through the right turn lane closest to Hardee's there. So they're going to go between that and the stoplight. So they're not out even in the intersection. So you have to block it way back off at Springfield to get enough room to get those trucks through. So it's a pretty big area in the turning radius. The back wheels on those long trucks are actually steerable to allow this to happen.
I've got a printout of a PowerPoint. I don't remember if I sent it out to you guys before or not, that kind of shows some of the initial turning radiuses where they engineered all these trucks going through these intersections. Impact to us was a few trees they had to trim, a couple signs that they sleeve so that they can pull out, lay on the ground so they can get these clearanced. And we had one street light at the corner of Columbia that we took out. It's actually laying down right beside the tracks right now because it was too tall to be in the way for the blades to swing over. The design actually calls for the blade tip to go over the top of that silver traffic control unit for the railroad tracks. It actually goes up and over it to get clearance as it comes out of Columbia Street. The other piece was this initial presentation to us came to us with the caveat of here's where we want to go, and oh, by the way, the railroad is showing up tonight, starting to bring these sections in. So we've been really scrambling, trying to figure out how we're going to be able to make this work. We didn't have a lot of heads-up time to plan this. They pretty much had their plan, and we balked a little bit, tried to push it different directions, to try to get IDOT to help us push it different directions. Ultimately, this is about the least impact of anything to be able to go to get them out of town for where they're going.
It was a real
IDOT
process.
has been one of the major rules for this type of move. This type of move is normally only done during the day, so them letting them do it at night is a big rule change and a big benefit to us.
Yeah, we had something similar to this a couple of years ago when they came out of the other rail yard,
So,
the TP&W rail yard, and they did run.
and I can't thank Sergeant Cam enough. His contacts within the state DOT really helped this process along and helped that communication.
Dennis, what's the height when, I guess, the largest section is on the truck? Do you have any idea?
It's labeled at 15 feet as the tallest height. And they took that into account in a lot of the stuff. Some of the plans called them for going out Wesley Road and going south down to 474. That had its Wesley Road was unnavigable by these trucks. There's no way they could get through the S-curves and the S-bends with these multiple trucks without a large amount of improvements. They actually looked at going straight down Washington Street and be able to collect 74, which would have been a better route for them. However, the bridge there at Cole Street where it kind of humps up, the trucks wouldn't clear it. The hump's high enough that it would have gotten high-centered with the blades in the middle, and they couldn't have got the trucks overloaded. They will be bringing trucks back that direction, but they'll be empty, so therefore they'll clear that bridge hump when they come back empty during the day. So, and they don't have any traffic provisions that need to be done during the day with no loads. They're not long enough or big enough to have to warrant anything. These guys, these are professional drivers. This is all they do is move these things, so these guys know what they're doing. They're very good at what they do, and I'm sure there'll be very few problems or questions, but I know we're planning to make sure we're available for those questions and make sure we can get whatever done to be able to have the minimum impact we can have on them.
Thank you, Dennis. Ty?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So since we talked to this group here some months back about rental registration, a lot of our focus has been on investigating the code piece as well as the software component. We've been working with I would phrase them as our partners. It's been planning and community development along with the inspections department, working with the fire department, the East Peoria Housing Authority, as well as the city attorney's office. So this has been really a group effort that we've been trying to put this information together for you. And I'd like to stress today that we don't have all the answers, but we have, I believe, some additional information that hopefully will be able we'll be able to bounce off of you and be able to give us some guidance on if we're heading the right direction or if we need to shift gears. The key, one of the goals, or the goal of the process is in any program we would introduce, and I think this is what we got back from our conversation with you some months ago, was try to have a reasonable cost structure, but it needs to be revenue neutral in that it doesn't cost the city anything out of pocket, that it pays for itself, and that we can do this with our existing staff. And I think that's a tall order and something that we've been trying to investigate. The code language, you have a sample of it in front of you, and I realize this just got placed in front of you tonight, so we certainly welcome the opportunity for you to digest that and get back to us. But it does have a proposed potential cost structure. We certainly look forward to feedback on that piece. But it is a framework for how this would look in our code. We did investigate. There is another type of program that's out there. We know the focus is on rental registration because what we see in the community many times is that everybody's entitled to a good quality housing. But what we find in many cases, not all, but in cases with rental housing, there are opportunities, I think, or challenges that need to be addressed. And so that's what the program has been focused on. The other program that's out there that I'll mention is a title transfer piece, and this was something that Jeff was familiar with in Franklin Park, but there's a lot of non-home rule communities out there that have this title transfer ordinance, which says when a piece of property transfers title, there's an inspection that takes place and there's a fee that's commensurate with that. It does not discriminate against commercial versus residential, nor does it discriminate against rental versus owner occupied. So it would be all properties. And understanding that that's another potential option. It is a lot more common in non-home rule communities, but we have found, I know that the research that these gentlemen have done turned up at least a dozen communities that are non-home rule in the state that do have a rental registration program. The software piece is really kind of a key matter here, that I think that anything that we can do that provides the opportunity for landlords to do an online registration, to do something without having to come into City Hall is a real benefit. There's a value to it. On top of that, I think it's taking that next step and being able to have this whole system where once you have that database created, the inspections piece, that back-end workflow is accommodated in that system as well too. And that's a fairly rare program. There's not a lot of software packages or suites out there that do that. We evaluated what we had in-house. We took a look at Image Trend. We took a look at MSI. And didn't find anything that took us all the way from that payment intake, creation of the database, all the way to facilitating the inspections. So that's what forced us to kind of look at some out-of-house options. And I think what we'd like to present tonight is we have a couple of gentlemen here from UGrid, Clint and John. And we've been talking to these gentlemen that they have a very interesting approach to software. It's very technologically innovative. But it also has a very unique pricing structure that they're able to work with us. I think what we find with a lot of these off-the-shelf software suites that are out there, they have some very high pricing thresholds that make it difficult for smaller communities like ourselves to be able to afford it. And these gentlemen offer, I think, a fairly new product. So what I'd like to do is to give them an opportunity to talk about their research and the product that they have to offer, and then we can get into kind of some of the things that we're looking for some guidance on. So with that, Clint?
Okay, thank you, Ty. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. And before I get started, just let me say how happy I am to be back home. Even though I live in Chicago now, just a few blocks away from Wrigley Field, I grew up in East Peoria. My dad worked here at Caterpillar his whole career. My mother worked at Dixon Fisheries her whole career. I can remember as a little Cub Scout taking a tour of the Silco plant and later seeing it demolished. So I'm definitely happy back here in my hometown. I'm here today with Zhang Chen, who is the president of UGrid, a company that he created. And before we get into UGrid, I want to just tell you about our company a little bit. UGrid is a data management firm that specializes in land and infrastructure. It's a spin-off of a company called Dynasty. Dynasty is a surveying firm that has offices all around the world. Interestingly enough, Dynasty did the surveying for the I-74 reconstruction project here in East Peoria. So Zhang and I were joking earlier today about all the multiple ways that we can use to drive from Chicago down to here, because we've both driven them all multiple times. So what makes us different is that we use geospatial technology to share metadata across multiple offices and platforms. We're also designed to be super easy. And so I often say that if you can navigate Facebook, if you can navigate Twitter or Amazon or any ordinary website like the Peoria Journal Star, you can easily navigate UGrid. That's how we're designed. We also don't require any special licensing costs. So a lot of these big companies, they require $10,000, $20,000 just for the opportunity of you to use their product. And that's just not how we're designed. We also are designed so that anybody across the city, even the general public, can use it without having to pay a user cost. Everything that we do is tied to a point on the globe. We call that a location of interest. And we can marry different programs together that use different reference systems. So for example, if one agency uses PIN numbers, and another agency uses latitude, longitude, and another agency uses United States Postal Service, we're designed to marry all those different people together. And I often say that we're proud that we are really good at fitting square pegs through round holes. So here's my agenda for you tonight a little bit. I'm going to discuss what we have heard from Ty, what we think your needs are, how we think we can meet those needs, and how that benefits the property owners, the tenants, the general public, and then the government of the city of East Peoria. So we did some research and a cursory review of all Illinois municipalities with a population over 10,000, which was about 225. We immediately identified these 78 municipalities that have some type of rental registration program. Now I know that's kind of hard to read, but trust me, there's 78 cities and villages and towns listed there. And I just want to emphasize enough that this research project was limited to only those municipalities with a population over 10,000. If we had drilled down to smaller municipalities, we surely would have found more than these 78. So this next slide here is just those municipalities we identified that are non-home rule. Again, if we had drilled down to smaller, we presumably would have found more than these 15. This next slide are some of the names that these municipalities use to describe these programs. And as you can see, it's kind of all over the place, but the common purpose is to better understand the housing stock in the community and to find ways to help the citizens at large, with safety being a major component of that. On this next slide, we went to those 78 municipalities and we asked, what type of information they collect from the property owners. So obviously, the name of the property owner was the most common, 78. 78 municipalities asked for the name of the property owner. And then we drill down from most common to least common, all the way to a secondary emergency name and phone number, which was collected by only 4 municipalities. And obviously, they ask for things like, is there a property manager? Are they in an association? All those types of helpful information. And this next slide here is only because when I grew up here, my high school math teacher used to always say, show your work. So thank you, Mrs. Graham. I'm showing my work in this slide. Here are the trends on the information collected about the actual property. Obviously, the address of the property was the most common. The type of units, are they apartment, home, single-family home, duplex, things like that. All the way down to number of bathrooms. Only 4 of those 78 municipalities wanted to know how many bathrooms were in the building. And then, of course, this next slide is showing my work again. So we also looked at inspections. Of those 78, about half of them have some sort of inspection component. And here are the trends on what gets inspected. Obviously, the first thing that they check is to make sure that it has functioning heat, gas, cooling, things like that. They also do a check of the electrical system, make sure that's working safe and up to code. And this is the first of 2 slides, and here's the second one. Obviously check for smoke and carbon monoxide, make sure the yard's taken care of. And I just have to interrupt myself. My very favorite part that they check for is holiday decorations, presumably to make sure that the plastic Santa and reindeer got put inside for the warmer months. Having spent my career in local government, I know that is a thorny issue that raises itself more than once. And this is my Providence, of course. So in speaking with Ty and his staff, Ty indicated that he's looking for one simple, easy platform that can handle all the various issues and needs that he has to work with. He wants to work with his property owners and give them the ability to do online account management. He wants a mapping and GIS function. He wants to share data across multiple departments and teams. He wants to accept payments, and he wants to do inspections. And as Ty indicated earlier, he's had difficulty finding one platform that can handle all of those needs. Handling different needs and making things easy is UGrid's specialty. So let's talk about how we think UGrid can help meet the needs of the property owners first. So in our research, I was really amazed. Of those 78 municipalities, only two had the ability to go online, register your property, pay for it, get your inspection handled, and I was really quite amazed. The vast majority of those municipalities required the property owner to fill out a paper form and then mail in an actual check. Some of them even required the property owner to go all the way down to City Hall and do it in person or pay in person. Very, very few had the ability to process a credit card. And I just found that to be really amazing and really hard for those property owners, especially those that might not live in the community, or maybe they spend half of the year in another part of the country. About a third had some type of training or educational component, just like the city of Peoria does across the river. And I believe most of those were in-person training requirements, so the property owner had to go to City Hall on an evening or a Saturday afternoon. And that's not very convenient for the property owner, and I would imagine it's also costly for the city. Our vision is to provide that training and education online. So not only can they do all their account management online in their PJs, they can do that educational component online in their PJs as well. Our system can even be sophisticated enough that if you want to include a test or an examination with that educational program, If they get the exam question wrong, we can have the system automatically replay the video so that they can relearn what they missed and have a second opportunity to take that question. We did not immediately see a pattern for inspections. Many required annual inspections done by the city at a time chosen by the city, which surely is not convenient for the property owners. We envision a system where after getting a notification that that property is ready for inspection, the owner can then tie into the staff's calendars and pick a time that's convenient for both the property owner and the inspector. We also have a system with automatic email notifications. So if your permit is about to expire, you'll get an automatic email from the city telling the property owner it's time to re-up. Or after the inspection of the property is complete, they'll get a copy of the inspection form along with the photographs for their own record. Surprisingly, I also did not see a pattern for those municipalities that have a housing authority just like yours does. We envision a system where the rental registration program can be directly tied into the housing authority, and the property owner can send an automatic notification to the authority that he's ready for a new tenant. So we think that would make it much easier for property owners to turn their units over quickly. And this is what we envision that interface looking like. As you can see, the rental registration program, which is managed by UGrid, is embedded within your own website. And I know that you're redoing your website right now, so this is a perfect opportunity to have this conversation. We think this is important for your property owners to feel that we're really a part of your team, that we're working closely with you. And next, this is just I know it's a little hard for you to see, but this is a typical sign-in page where you create your account. It's pretty straightforward, and we've all done similar things like this. And if the property owner has multiple properties, then they could manage all of those various properties simply and easily on this platform. So that's how it would work for property owners. Let's talk a little bit about how it would work for the general public and the tenants. One of the things that we're proud to be able to provide is the ability for tenants to see where they want to live. So they could put in an address and figure out what properties are available nearby. But what we're really proud of is the ability for tenants to look up their property and see if that property is registered with the city, if it has the permit, but also if the property has passed its inspection form. And a trend amongst these programs are tenants being taken advantage of. And this is a safety net for those tenants to look up and see whether or not their home that they're renting is really safe. So we think this is a big benefit to your community. And this is a mock-up of how that might look like for a tenant or a member of the general public to just play with the platform, see what units are available. So let's talk a little bit about how we think this is going to benefit you and your team. So the biggest benefit is that you're saving a ton of money compared to other municipalities. Remember how I said most municipalities are still doing paper forms? Can you imagine how much data entry that must be for the city staff? Can you imagine how problematic it is to track all those checks and make sure they get deposited and to issue receipts? Well, with UGrid, all of that happens automatically. There are no headaches, and all that data is instantly available to your team. Remember how I talked about doing the educational component on a random evening or on a Saturday, and you had to pay somebody overtime to come in and do that educational training? Not with UGrid. That's all done automatically. It's all done online. It's easier for the property owner. It's easier for your staff. We also think with this platform, inspection no-shows would be a thing of the past. And instead of the city sending someone a notice in the mail, which may or not be received by the property owner, they get an email or a text saying, hey, you need to schedule your inspection, and they schedule the inspection that works for both them and your team. And Ty has indicated to me that one of the things that's important to him are that these inspections be done at random. And so the UGrid platform is smart enough that we can set that up randomly as well. Using our application, the people performing the inspection will be able to do those inspections using a smartphone. So, and that smartphone can prompt them on what to look for and can give them examples of this is a set of stairs that passes inspection, this is a set of stairs that doesn't, things like that. As they fill out the inspection survey on the smartphone, that data is instantly available back in the office. And as I said before, we can also tie into your housing authority. So if an eligible unit is available, your housing staff or even your housing computer system can instantly know that. So this is what we're real proud about at UGrid. We've been working on this for a few months now. This is really groundbreaking, and no other company in the world offers this product. And this is a new data collection feature we're calling UCollect. This allows for data collection in the field using a smartphone. It's also designed to be super simple and easy and doesn't require any special training and doesn't require any special licensing costs per user. We've been working on this for months, and we think this is an answer to your inspection dilemma. And the UCollect application can do short answer, multiple choice, numerical, or even take photos. But what's really cool is this application uses the phone's internet browser. So you don't need to download a special app onto the phone. Having worked in local government my whole career, I know how problematic that can be. That you have to go to the IT department and get their approval. And that's just an extra headache that you don't need to deal with. So we've designed this specifically to work with the phone's browser. I don't have a mock-up of what the actual questions might be because we need to hear from you on what questions you want to ask. So in review, we believe that we have a platform that meets all of your needs. We're quite proud that besides being an easy platform to use, we are completely customizable to whatever your specific needs are. We're also proud of the ability to customize that platform to your needs. This isn't an off-the-shelf product that you have to take it or leave it. We'll adjust UGrid to work for you. We'll adjust to your needs, not the other way around. We're also proud of the ability to coordinate your workflow amongst your different departments. We believe this platform will be well liked not only by property owners, saving them a lot of time and effort, but also your general public, your tenants, and also Ty and his staff. So as Ty indicated on cost issues, and I don't want to get into any specific numbers, but I just want to emphasize that we believe in a flexible financing type of system. So our system is smart enough that we can process the credit cards of the property owners and issue the permits for you. And then after taking the administrative fee to manage the UGrid system, we can forward to you the remainder at the end of every week, month, quarter, whatever we decide ends up working well for both of us. I also want to mention briefly that we would like to build in some sort of floor for the UGrid platform, some sort of guarantee, but we can structure that system such that if that guarantee isn't met, that can be rolled over to the next year or the next month or however we want to structure that. So that way the city of East Peoria would never be in a position where it needs to pay UGrid a penny. We would have already collected that money up front. So I guess just in review, I just want to say that we think UGrid is a good solution for all your needs. We think it's super easy to use and will be well liked and appreciated by all your stakeholders. And if you have any questions for Zhang and I, we're more than welcome to answer them.
Presentation questions?
Without getting into cost of the program and everything, which obviously would be a separate conversation, have you found that there is there's, as you heard Ty say, we want this to be a revenue neutral program for the city. So between a reasonable cost for the permit and the number of properties, would you have any feel for what might be a tipping point on the number of properties to make this work?
That's a great question, Commissioner. I can't really answer that question because we would need to hear from you what features you want. If the more features that you want, for example, let's talk about the inspection, the more questions on that inspection form, the more it would take to maintain that on the platform. Then the more answers that are available per question, the more maintenance it requires for the platform. So if you have 5 questions and each question is a yes or no answer, that's relatively simple. But I'm understanding most of these, as you can see, there's a lot of potential for inspection questions and a lot of potential answers on those questions. So I can't really answer that without having a better feel for what features you're interested in.
Okay.
Although I will say, we are very proud that all of the features we provide to our customers are substantially lower than other platforms that they look at. And I think Ty spoke to that earlier. Most of these systems require $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 just to get in the door, and we're way below that.
Of the, you did some research on the non-home rule municipalities that do rental registration. I'm sure many of these are larger than us. Some are probably about the same size. Do you have any feel for how many rental properties these 15 communities may have?
That wasn't a question we really looked into. I'm sorry to say, but again, it was all over the place. Some communities only focus on apartments, some only on multiple unit dwellings. So it's really just all over the place.
Okay. So truly, this is from what Ty has told me, this is a new product for you guys as well. Is that true?
Well,
Or fairly?
I wouldn't say that. We've been doing land infrastructure data uses for several years now. So this is just another customized product that we offer. All of our products are completely customized for all of our customers. Again, we adjust UGrid to meet the needs of the community, not the other way around.
Okay.
Questions from the council before we turn it back to Ty?
The only question I would have, and it's kind of related into similar to what Commissioner Densberger asked, but how many other communities in Illinois are currently using your services, similar to what we're looking for here?
That's a difficult question for me to answer because we offer so many different types of services. Between UGrid and Dynasty, I'll let the president speak to that.
Well, first of all, Dynasty was founded in 1994, so we've been in business for 24 years, providing serving and engineering services. So UGrid is a spin-off from Dynasty Group, and we incorporated UGrid in 2012. And as far as municipalities, most of the current service is not in, to be honest, in rent registration. It's really data hosting. And for instance, we're currently hosting, serving and engineering data for Chicago Transit Authority. We're currently hosting data for what I call WMATA, Washington Metro, the subway system. They hire engineering consultant to laser scan, and I may get into too much into the serving area, and which is very heavy data set, something called the point cloud data, have a laser to shoot dots every quarter of an inch of the whole infrastructure. Is actually data hosted on UGrid. We offer the portal for them for their staff to access. Giving you an example, WMATA, Washington Metro, the subway system, they have over 400 people, their own, agency staff, their consultant and contractors, and also, for instance, the latest project, they're doing the cell phone access in their terminal. They have, Sprint, Motorola, T-Mobile staff accessing those kind of portals. So typically, those are kind of the infrastructure and land-based data, we've been hosting. And when we approached, Ty for the municipal solutions, is, at the first, to be honest, we really marketed as what I call low-cost GIS solution for data hosting, data management, and then this came up. We look into that. That's why we went through all of the research about the rental registration. We felt, well, since there's really no one system out there fit this, and we probably can build one, and we already have about 60 to 70% of functionality, such as we look at the landlord is really our user database. You know, we need to put the table together for all of the properties. And for inspections, it's very similar to some of the serving applications that, you know, we're using, and except that they're in different items. So behind the front end is a huge database engine hosted on Microsoft Azure, and so that's the platform we're using. And so this is really a customized system based on East Peoria's need, and that's what we're proposing here.
Is the information that you would gather, and I take it your company would be you would store the data off-site, basically, you would compile that, and you would have it and make it available to us?
That's a great question, Commissioner. The data that is on the UGrid servers is your data.
Okay.
We're not going to do anything with that. We're not going to sell it or use it for any other purpose. So it's yours and it belongs to you and cannot be used for anything else. It's stored on Microsoft servers,
Okay.
which is the industry standard in government for data security. Does that answer your question?
It does, and so what we have then is proprietary to us, what we have, and you mentioned in your presentation, if I heard it right, that the information that we have could be made available to our housing authority, other units that could use the material, the information about rental property and so forth. And we, I guess, would control that, who we make it available to.
Correct.
My question would be, is this something that's available? I'm just sort of, this is new to me in this way, is like the realty market, businesses that manage properties would be on the housing authority and that.
If you'd like to open that up for public use, then that's your decision.
I mean, if it helps us, you know, to promote our city and what we have and get some return on our investment here with what we're doing here to have a quality product, I think we want to share that news, but.
Yeah, the system is smart enough that if somebody wanted to use this program to find a place to live, then we can set that up for you.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, sir.
Oh, do you have
Just a
something, Dan? I'm
couple of-
sorry.
Yeah, I just have one question. Is this, the information that's gathered, is it protected under anything? Or, I guess once we buy the program and if we start the renter registration, is it only the city that can view that? Is it open then to the public, the information that we gather from that? Is it?
That's a great question,
For instance, like
Commissioner.
HIPAA with medical information.
That's a great question, and the answer to that is it's up to you. So we can make it available only to Ty and his staff. We can make it available, some of it available to all city employees, the general public. However you'd want to work that, we'll make UGrid meet your needs.
So it's our information and we have the, I guess, the right to allow whoever to look at it? Is that the legal?
It's your data, and you control that data.
Okay.
Now, well, anybody else? Now we'll go back to you, Ty.
Thank you. So some of the discussion about costs, I can touch upon that a little bit more. You know, we're still looking at a 3 to 5 year cycle of getting out and doing an inspection. So obviously there's a cost for that. We anticipate utilizing our existing inspection staff as well as some of the fire department staff. And I think one of the things that's attractive about this product is that it's fairly simplified. That, you know, they were talking about earlier that you can have just about any user that's really not well-versed in it and be able to navigate through it, and that's a pretty key piece. We're still looking at somewhere in that neighborhood of 2,250 to 2,500 rental units. We still think that's a pretty good figure. When we look at costs on our end, if we're looking at this system, and I know that we're not talking specific numbers at this point as far as what their cost is going to be, but they have some flexibility there that would be helpful in us moving forward. Just a really gross ballpark range, looking at other components of it. You talk about having some front-end staff assistance with the housing authority, our inspectors. We're probably somewhere in needing to get enough revenue to generate about $60,000 to $75,000 a year. So it is a, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it's a tall order to try to come up with a reasonable price and generate sufficient revenue just to cover the cost, not looking to generate additional revenue. One of the things that we've talked about is, you know, how do you structure that program? That as we look at our neighbors downstate that have this type of program, Peoria has a program right now that recently went through an adjustment, and I believe they're at 150 per unit. Well, it's the first unit, and then additional units are 25. And then Bloomington has a similar setup, a little different cost structure, that they're at $65 per building, and then it's $5 per unit when you get above 3 units. When you start getting into a graduated system like that, it makes it real challenging for us as staff to try to come up with any sort of projected revenues. So in an ideal scenario, what we would like to ask from the council is if you would be acceptable to moving forward with a program that would have a fixed pricing structure that we can evaluate in year 1 and year 2 to determine, if we're generating sufficient revenue, if we need to adjust those figures. But if you just had a flat per unit cost, said $50 a unit, $100 a unit, whatever that number is, that would make it a lot easier to work into it. And if there was some sort of exception for very large developments, and we can think of, Jeff and I were talking today, Leisure Acres, Tall Oaks Village, some of those products out there, it would be something we'd take a look at and say, okay, how do you establish a threshold that maybe that number goes down if you get above 10 units? But the more fixed it can be, the easier it is to try to come up with what that revenue generation is going to look like.
Are you saying, Ty, that you need $60,000 to $75,000 to cover costs?
Yeah. And that's a gross
And that
figure
would
right
come
now. That's
basically from
something
the-
that Jeff and I have talked about, that, you get into fully allocating, and how do you adjust for that?
Your Honor, what Ty, he's looking basically for a baseline for evaluation, and just some quick math, $70,000, if you break that down between 2,300 rental properties, it's a little over $30.
Yeah. So we certainly want to include that educational piece. We want to make sure that the inspection is a part of that. I know that was something that Clint found in their research, that a lot of communities out there had these types of programs, and they weren't doing the inspection. And we feel like that's not doing our full due diligence. That is a part of this process, and we're offering a service here, and that service is to make sure that we're at least touching each of those properties within a certain time frame to ensure that they are good quality housing. The other piece is that educational piece, and I know a lot of communities offer some sort of a discount for participation in that education piece.
Would you charge a separate amount then for inspection?
No,
No, it'd be all one
It'd all be one
registration, yeah.
fee?
But it'd be annually is a very likely time frame that you would require that.
I think Ty makes a good point in that if you don't include and commit to the inspection piece, really the public safety portion and the benefit goes out the window. And the benefit to the resident is gone, and the benefit actually to the property owner is gone, because it protects the property owner, because my property was inspected on this date, it was in compliance, and now you lived here and now it's not. Why? And on the other side, it gives the renter the assurance that he's moving into a property that's been at least at some point inspected and is
Certified.
and is safe to live in. So I think that's the piece that if you move forward with this, you have to commit to the inspection piece and follow through on it.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, my next question is, how soon do you want feedback?
Can be tonight, it can be in the coming weeks. I
I
think
just say
that-
we set a benchmark, because we've talked about this for
Yeah.
quite some time, and quite honestly, I'd hate to see another 6 months go by and then we resurrect it again and then we get nowhere.
Well, I guess, Commissioner, let's just pick a date. If everyone could get back to Ty with comments and questions by, say, the 1st of June, so that he can continue a conversation with these
And come back with a
gentlemen and see what
recommendation
we
then?
come up with.
Would you come back with a recommendation?
Based on those questions and comments, yeah, we'll be able to develop something. Does that seem fair?
I think
Yeah.
that's good. We have a 3-week window here till our next council meeting. So this is probably as good a time just to get with it and see
Yeah,
what we want to
June
do.
1st would be,
Up or down and move them.
would give him a few days before the
If
next
you guys got
meeting.
an opinion on which direction, we need some feedback on that too, on certain things. If you've got feedback on the number of units, like the large units, whether you think it's fourplex or, somebody that's got 8 units. One of the things we talked about, if you've got a multi-unit building, but what if somebody's got 15 single-family houses?
Now, when you say that, Jeff, are you talking about for multi-unit buildings, that there, some sort of a discount, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, Dan, for instance, if the fee is $50 per unit, well, if I have a 100-unit place,
Right.
is that reasonable?
And the inspector doesn't have to
Whereas if
travel.
someone has, yeah.
A
when the
single-family
inspector
house
can-
takes more to inspect a lot of times than it
Yeah.
does the larger multi-unit facilities. And plus, a larger multi-unit facility is much more likely, if you've got 100-plus units, they're much more likely to have maintenance and other things on staff to maintain properties.
So, you don't want to make the pricing schedule, I think, cumbersome or difficult to understand, but there has to be some
Yeah.
economy of
But
scale.
take a look at what Ty's presented in the written document, because it does have a proposed fee schedule in there, and tell us what you think about it.
Very good. Anything else? I want to make sure we give the audience a chance to.
We have
Weigh in
had some
too.
public input already previously. I guess we're open to that as well from here on out, always.
Yes,
You're gonna
we
get
have
that,
talked,
I'm sure.
Robert and I spoke with the Realtors Association Government Affairs Committee, and they were very receptive to the concept. Obviously, the devil's in the details, but
Yeah.
they like the overall concept, the idea of putting all landlords on the level playing field,
Yeah.
and that's what this would do.
I also broached the subject at a Chamber of Commerce Board meeting, and there was only positive comment.
Good.
Now,
Well, thank you, and I think it's overdue.
the renter registration for those homes that are part of our, work under Latoya. And maybe
Those are inspected anyway.
Right. Okay, so who would be, maybe this is a conversation for a different time. I guess who would be responsible for that charge? Is that Latoya's office? Is that
The property owner would be, those, Latoya runs a voucher program, so the people that have those vouchers can go anywhere, so anybody that would accept that voucher, so they could rent the same property as you and me could rent, so,
And from what I've been told, I mean, that office has always, and now she does a very good job with the inspections. And those are some of the safest and, very good places to be in.
and HUD's, in the last, 10 years, HUD's got much more strict on their inspection guidelines. In fact, one of the things me and Ty talked about is that's where we would start with the HUD guidelines for inspections.
Okay.
But, as far as, the presentation and the software, it seems customizable. There may be a wider use for it that I'm sure Chief Knapp would love to talk about. But the fact that it's, there's no individual licensing makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So
Very good.
we'll get some comments and come back.
Speaking of
Look forward to
comments,
it.
anybody in the audience want to make a comment on it? Don? Good presentation, by the way. Excellent. Welcome back home.
So it looks like you guys asked a lot of the good questions. One of the things, talking about 2,500 units, annual inspection, that's 7 a day. Are we going to hire somebody just to inspect?
I think that's where he was going into the 2 to 3 year cycle.
Yeah.
Right, well, and you bump that up to 5, up to potential of 5 years. I think it's using existing inspection staff, but also a key piece to their software would be something that's fairly user accessible and something we could potentially work with the fire department on as well.
So will the renter have access, so if there becomes an issue with the property, they can, do some input to say this needs to be inspected, or there's an ongoing issue, it should be inspected?
That's a good question, and that'd be something that we could work with Clint and his staff as far as how we facilitate that communication. Certainly, there'd be an opportunity in that inspection, but that inspection's not gonna happen often enough for issues to just come up.
Yeah, if the inspection's being pushed out, it's,
Yeah. We would likely look for something that would provide that two-way communication.
and then, how do you determine whether it's renter or landlord issues with these inspections? As you know, some renters aren't exactly,
Well, Goes to condition of the property. Right now, those can come into code enforcement anyway. And it's not the city's province to decide who did it, it's just fix it.
So, what is the cost for an inspector to go out?
Depends on the.
To go out on a
time and
rental
effort involved.
registration
Go out.
inspection. So a back of the napkin, if you look at what they're paid on an hourly basis, or low 20s, we projected for a 30-minute inspection, you got, just looking at salary, you're looking at about $12 to $13. And of course, you've got travel time, you've got, if you fully allocate it, you've got to include the benefits piece to that as well,
So you're
too.
probably at least a $50 range a unit
It will get there
recover
quickly,
costs.
yes.
So, the data is owned by the city. Determine who can look at that data. Since it's also public domain, is it foilable? Can I FOIL the data and
I
look at
imagine
it?
you could.
That was part of my question. We may own it. Is it protected by any way, like HIPAA for medical information? Is that information protected? Your education information is protected as well. So I didn't know if this information would be protected also, or if we own it, do we just have the final say in who we get to give it to?
I believe that would be open.
So, well, yeah, what's unique about this database, though, is the opportunity for people looking to move to this area to say, where are the rental units? I mean, you have them all
Potentially.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Don.
all right, thanks.
Anybody else? All right, motion to adjourn this working session, please.
So moved.
Commissioner Densberger, second. Commissioner Call, roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers? Call? Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
We will reconvene in about 3 or 4 minutes. Thank you.
Decker.
Here.
Densberger.
Here.
Jeffers.
Here.
Call. Mayor Mingus.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please stand for the invocation, remain standing for the pledge.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful spring day we've had today in our city. We ask your blessing as we go about the business of the city as well. Thank you for watching over us. We pray that as we recognize ourselves as less than perfect people all the time, that we would learn to always improve and mature as we see things and mend our nets, if you will, to sharpen our focus as we go and we learn from each other. So may that be our spirit tonight as we move ahead as well. And we do pray for, again, guidance as we deliberate, and thank you for our community and the goodness that you provided us in it. We thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approve of the minutes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the minutes of the regular meeting and special meeting for a working session held on May 1st, 2018 be approved as printed.
Second, please.
Second.
Mr. Decker, discussion, roll call.
Commissioner Decker.
Aye.
Densberger.
Aye.
Jeffers.
Aye.
Call.
Aye.
Mayor Mingus.
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. We have two proclamations. The first, whereas our city is committed to recognizing our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradesmen, design professionals, laborers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. Whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Built Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to help America, to keep America great. And whereas code officials, partners in community safety and economic growth, the theme for Building Safety Month 2018 encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of building safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, and new technologies in the construction industry. Building Safety Month 2018 encourages appropriate steps everyone can take to ensure that places where we live, learn, work, worship, and play are safe, and recognizes that countless lives have been saved due to the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic development, investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by the local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now therefore, I, David W. Mingus, Mayor of the City of East Peoria, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 as Building Safety Month, and I encourage our citizens to join with their communities in participation in Building Safety Month activities. Very important. Secondly, whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services have grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-the-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is important to recognize the value and accomplishment of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week now. Therefore, I, David W. Mingus, Mayor of the City of East Peoria, do hereby proclaim May 20 through 26, 2018 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the theme EMS Strong, Stronger Together, and call upon all citizens to participate in this observance. Of course, we love our EMS services. We think they're the best Save a lot of lives, Commissioner Call.
Oh, I agree. That's exactly what I would have said.
Thank you for all you do, and pass that on, Chief. Any other communication, Madam Clerk?
None tonight, Your Honor.
Then we have consent agenda, which I believe we're all agreeable on, so I will turn over to Commissioner Denberger. Oh, public comment. Anybody in the public want to speak? Nope. Now we'll go to Gary.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a consent agenda consisting of items numbered 1 through 5 as listed on the agenda for this meeting to be considered by omnibus vote.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Call. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Then, Mr. Mayor, I move you that items numbered 1 through 5 as listed on the consent agenda be hereby approved and adopted. The items numbered 2 through 5, having been read once by their title and having laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection, be adopted as presented.
A second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Call. Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, then I'll continue on with my regular items. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I move you that ordinance number 4390 here to attach, an ordinance amending Title III, Chapter 3 of the East Peoria City Code pertaining to liquor control regulations and adding a class of liquor license related to art studios, be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Commissioner. Some time back, probably about a month ago, we were approached by a lady who currently runs a small art studio that's looking to relocate and perhaps purchase a building within our city and run a business by where folks can come in, spend an evening creating a art project, whether it be painting or other media. And a piece of this that makes it more enjoyable is, of course, the ability for them to enjoy a glass of wine or something like that along the way. As we discussed it with her, we found that our liquor code doesn't have really an applicable provision. So Attorney Triggs was present. We went back and forth, and we have, through this action, we would be creating a class of license that pertains to that. Basically, this class would license would pertain only to an art studio. I believe 85% of their business has to be generated by a art function, not by the sale of alcohol. Sale of alcohol is incidental to the other business, and the establishment would have to be within a area that is zoned commercial. I believe those are the key points here. But it is actually the liquor license, as I said, would be incidental to the rest of the business.
Neat concept.
Yeah.
Other discussion?
It's actually a very growing, trending
It is.
business.
It is.
And I
It is.
kind of look forward to seeing one come to East Peoria.
Does the art get better with wine?
Mine probably would.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Next, Your Honor. Mr. Mayor, I move you that ordinance number 4391 here to attach, an ordinance providing for the sale of excess city property at 123 Berry Street, be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Call.
Thank you, Commissioner. A couple weeks ago, sometime back, we passed an item that would allow us to move forward with this sale. It was advertised with their listing agent, Mr. Aaron Cody. Any offer would have to meet at least 80% of the appraised value. The property appraised for $22,000. It's being sold for $18,000, plus the purchaser will cover $500 of city attorney fees to prepare the ordinance for the sale of the property. And essentially, this buyer seems to have the intention to rehab the property and get it back on the tax rolls and have it being a useful piece. Ty, is that?
Yeah, this is a win-win. It's a rarity that we get a piece of property that has a home still on it. Many times in these cases, the home gets demolished as a part of the process. This one we were able to acquire in time to have a productive piece of property. So we're really excited about this one. We're not always going to be able to get to this point, but it sold very quickly. We had a lot of interest, and we're just looking forward to it getting fixed up and being a nice part of the neighborhood.
And the great part is, we don't have to pay the cost to demolish it.
Other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
Next, Mr. Mayor, I move you that ordinance number 4392 here to attach, an ordinance providing for the vacation of the Joe Street right-of-way be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Call.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is I guess it's a right-of-way. It's not really a street at this point. It is located off Meadow on the Brookland subdivision. By vacating this right-of-way, it allows neighboring properties to better develop and doesn't really inhibit anything for the city's use. And again, attorney fees are being paid by others. Ty, anything else?
I'll just add that the vacation does not impede any future potential development to the north. It still allows for access going northbound into the farm property. So it's a pretty simple vacation.
Other discussion?
Is there talk of that, Ty? When I looked at that, I know it's right up against it. Is there talk of anything, or is it just?
Nothing that we've heard in the wings. This is the right-of-way here that we're vacating is kind of a residual of a former iteration of a subdivision that never did come to fruition. But
Okay.
there isn't any immediate talk, but you could see that there's available property there, and so it could happen.
Okay.
So we'd like to leave the door open for that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, this one, Your Honor, I'll be reading at length. Resolution number 1819-013. Whereas a vacancy will exist on the East Peoria Police Pension Board as a result of the resignation of Michael Graham from the East Peoria Police Pension Board, and whereas the Honorable Mayor David W. Mingus has recommended the appointment of William Fitzgerald to fill the vacancy created on the East Peoria Police Pension Board. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that the appointment by Mayor David W. Mingus of William Fitzgerald to the East Peoria Police Pension Board to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Michael Graham on the East Peoria Police Pension Board for the unexpired term ending April 30, 2019, be approved. And that this resolution number 1819-013 be adopted as presented. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, I move you that resolution number 1819-013 be adopted as presented.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Call.
Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, I'll start by, I want to thank Mr. Graham for his service on the pension board. He and Matt Mamer, I believe, came on the pension board at about the same time. They, I think, made some real contributions to the pension board and the services that it provides to the pensioners and the future pensioners. Previously, we had appointed Terry Schultz, former East Peoria resident, to the board. I think he's a great addition, and Mr. Fitzgerald is with us. I believe he works with Mr. Graham, and we can look forward to like service from him. And thank you very much for your interest and your service.
Other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, William.
Next, Your Honor, I have resolution number 1819-008. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that resolution number 1819-008, hereto attached, a resolution approving Laserfish software licensing renewal for the city with R&D Computer Systems LLC in the amount of $12,622.70 be approved, and that this resolution number 1819-008 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Call.
Thank you, Commissioner. As I said, this is a licensing renewal. We've been using Laserfish for some time as a record-keeping and archiving mechanism, and it has served us well and will continue to do so.
Other discussion, please. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Migas?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And my final item, Your Honor, I'll be reading it at length as well. Resolution number 1819-014. A resolution authorizing consent to assignment of Embassy Suites Hotel and Conference Center leases and related estoppel certificates for assignment of Embassy Suites Development Agreement and leases by JQH East Peoria Development LLC to JDHQ Hotels LLC. Whereas the City of East Peoria has previously entered into a development agreement, and the first amendment to the development agreement, hereinafter called the development agreement, along with the related hotel ground lease and conference center lease agreement documents with the revocable trust of John Q. Hammonds dated December 28, 1989, as amended and restated hereinafter the J.Q. Hammonds Trust for the development of the Embassy Suites Hotel and East Peoria Conference Center and adjacent development site, the property, and whereas in March 2008, the J.Q. Hammonds Trust assigned its interest in the development agreement along with the related hotel ground lease and conference center lease agreement, the Embassy Suites leases, to JQH East Peoria Development LLC, a Missouri limited liability company that was wholly owned by the John Q. Hammonds Hotels Development LLC, and whereas at the time of the March 2008 assignment, the J.Q. Hammonds Trust and the John Q. Hammonds Hotels Development LLC owned and operated multiple hotel developments along with other affiliated properties throughout the United States while continuing to develop additional new hotel projects throughout the United States, and whereas in May 2013, Mr. John Q. Hammonds, the principal behind the J.Q. Hammonds Trust, and the JQH East Peoria Development LLC, and the John Q. Hammonds Hotels Development LLC passed away, and whereas the J.Q. Hammonds Trust and the John Q. Hammonds Hotels Development LLC have now entered into an agreement to sell all interest in the hotel properties owned by J.Q. Hammonds Trust and the John Q. Hammonds Hotels Development LLC, including the East Peoria Embassy Suites and Conference Center currently held by JQH East Peoria Development LLC, to JDHQ Hotels LLC, an affiliate of JD Holdings LLC and Atrium Holding Company. And whereas pursuant to the proposed sale of the interests held by JQH East Peoria Development LLC and the development agreement and the Embassy Suites leases to JDHQ Hotels LLC, JD Holdings LLC, and Atrium Holding Company have requested that the city consent to the transfer and assignment of the interests held by JQH East Peoria Development LLC to JDHQ Hotels LLC, and whereas pursuant to the development agreement along with the related Embassy Suites leases, the city must consent to any assignment of the ownership interest in the development agreement and the related Embassy Suites leases, and the city may require that a guarantor be provided for any assignment of the ownership interest in the in the development agreement and the related Embassy Suites leases, and whereas the proposed assignment of the ownership interest held by the JQH East Peoria Development LLC in the Embassy Suites development project will allow this development project to continue to operate under the National Embassy Suites flag and to remain an ongoing and viable development project for the city. And whereas in order to effectuate the transfer and assignment of these interests and responsibilities from JQH East Peoria Development LLC to JDHQ Hotels LLC, JD Holdings LLC, and Atrium Holding Company, have requested that the city consent to the assignment and assumption documents for the development agreement and the Embassy Suites leases as provided in Exhibit 1, the consents to agreement, hereto attached, as well as the estoppel certificates for the development agreement and the Embassy Suites leases as provided in Exhibit 2, the estoppel certificates attached hereto, in relation to Embassy Suites Hotel and Conference Center development in East Peoria. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Section 1, the above recitations are found to be true and correct. Section 2, provided the contingencies set forth herein are met, the city hereby approves the consents to assignment and the estoppel certificates for the assignment of the ownership interests held by JQH East Peoria Development LLC in the Embassy Suites development project as set forth in the development agreement and the Embassy Suites leases to JDHQ Hotels LLC. Section 3, upon a sufficient showing of adequate assurances of financial creditworthiness of the grantor of the assignments as determined by the city attorney, the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized to execute the consents to assignment documents attached as Exhibit 1 and the estoppel certificates attached as Exhibit 2 in such form as the mayor in his discretion may approve, such that the interest of JQH East Peoria Development LLC in the development agreement along with the related hotel ground lease and conference center lease agreement is assigned to JDHQ Hotels LLC, an affiliate of JD Holdings LLC and Atrium Holding Company. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, I move you that resolution number 1819-014 be adopted as presented.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Decker.
Okay, all of that, and I may ask for Mr. Trigg's help here, is to say that Mr. Hammond's passed away. His trust and holding company has since filed for bankruptcy, and I believe as a part of that reorganization, many of their holdings are being sold. JDHQ Hotels LLC, Atrium are the buyer. This gives the city permission for that final transfer of property under all the leases. We have received assurances from the new owners as to that it will remain in operation pretty much as is, and all guarantees that the city had previously will remain in effect. I will say that having spoken to a representative from the local embassy, they are pleased with this new owner. I believe the understanding is that they will be spending some funds to further refresh the property and keep it viable, and intend to have it remain a good part of East Peoria for the foreseeable future. Dennis, did I miss anything?
Well, maybe just a couple of comments. What is happening here is, and to remind folks that the city of East Peoria owns the land under the hotel. The city owns the conference center, and they're subject to leases, which were with the John Q. Hammons Trust. And their lease payments due for almost another 10 years. At the end of the leases, though, the trust, the Hammons Trust, would have acquired ownership. Since Mr. Hammond's passing, there's been significant litigation, mainly in Missouri, which is of no particular interest to us, because this holding company, who now seeks to acquire the leasehold interest from the city, had an agreement with John Q. Hammons that they would buy all of his hotel projects. In fact, 25 of them had already been sold. And there was some resistance from the trustees of the Hammonds Trust when Mr. Hammonds died to allow that to go forward. Essentially, they had a right of first refusal, and there's resistance on the part of some of two co-trustees to consummate the rest of the sales that arguably had been anticipated by Mr. Hammonds. So finally, the parties came to terms. So there is this sale now of the interest in the East Peoria property. It's a leasehold interest, not the title, to this JD Holdings, Inc. There are several layers of corporations and LLCs and partnerships and principles that we have examined carefully over the last several weeks. And we are confident that the people who are going to acquire the leasehold interest here are expert at what they're doing, that they're highly financed. Actually, highly financed. They have the financing, and they are credit worthy, and will have all the responsibilities that the Hammonds organization had before. That's to make lease payments, but it's also to maintain the hotel as a high-quality facility, and to thereby and continue to operate as a Hilton product, as an Embassy Suites, and under that flag, because that is as important, I think, to the city's interest as getting lease payments. So all that is in line, and the documents that are being subject to your vote and approval tonight are consents, because we built into the agreement way back at the beginning that this interest in the East Peoria properties could not be sold, signed, or transferred without your consent. And we've been very deliberate in looking and making sure that this is a proper entity for whom you should consent to the transfer of interest. The other documents are called estoppels, are representations by the city that payments from the Hammonds organization are current, that we don't have any issues with Hammonds, because this organization will borrow a great deal of money from Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase Bank. But in their borrowing, it's not just for us. The initial phase of what is happening here deals with 24 properties around the nation with a value of about $1 billion. And the borrowing, I think is important to the city, and we'll share this much, is only about 60 to 65% of the value of the property. That's important to us. That means they have several $100 million of equity in the property, which gives us a real comfort level. I think we arguably are obliged to give our consent because they are credit worthy. But even if we were not obliged, our examination of their history and the financial stability they have suggests to us that we'd want to do it anyway. So I think we should be happy. We're fortunate. Nobody will notice any changes, and we have there's lots of layers here, but we'll come to know probably the name Atrium, because Atrium will be the management company. And Atrium is essentially the same principles, the same people are involved, but they will manage the East Peoria properties under the title of Atrium. And once they make the final lease payment, about 10 years from now, they will acquire ownership. But in the meantime, we should not notice any change, except we anticipate some refurbishing money going into the hotel property.
Thank you, Dennis. Any discussion?
The only thing I'll say, Mr. Mayor, which I've discussed with you prior to the meeting, this particular property is a customer of my employer, so for that reason alone, as to no conflict of interest, I'll be abstaining.
So noted. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Abstain.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
4 ayes and 1 abstention, Your
Thank
Honor.
you very much.
That's all I have at this time,
Thank you,
sir.
Commissioner Densberg. Commissioner Decker.
One item, Mayor, resolution number 1819-012. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois. The resolution number 1819-012 hereto attached. a resolution approving repairs of Elmhurst Drive by American Asphalt Surface Recycling Incorporated, Porter Brothers, and American Road Maintenance, and approving an engineering agreement with Patrick Meyer and Associates related to the repairs be approved. And this resolution number 1819-012 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title, be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Second, please. Second. Commissioner Call.
Thank you, Commissioner Call. Last council meeting, I believe it was last, read the resolution approving the road repairs. After that, we discussed, I'd say found money, but we went over a little bit more money that we are able to set aside for the roads, total of about $120,000. That money, we had to, I guess, take another look at all of our projects and all of our roads that did not make it this year, and choose one that, or at least some projects that that money could be used for. In East Peoria, we have I guess, a triaging system that looks at all of our roads, takes the politics out of it. So basically, whoever puts the most pressure on us, so we take care of those roads. It's not how we do it. We look at the roads individually, we rate them, and we try to repair the roads based on which ones need it the most. There were numerous ones that are very close together. This is one that we chose just because of kind of completing the neighborhood, and it will service a lot of residents in that area. The reason for bringing it to council, though, is because we approved the resolution, and this is added money. So it's on top of what we've done before, and just happy that we do have more money, and any other that we could find throughout the year, we could certainly find a road project to spend it on.
Thank you. Other discussion?
Just a quick comment. Commissioner, we, as mentioned, that in the bid process, we did come under bid on some of the areas of our road construction. So I think a lot of the money, I know we had the sales tax increase, and that's part of it, but because of the climate of the bid structure, we did save, I think, $100,000 over what could have been budgeted as our estimate.
Yes, maybe Dennis can remember off the top of his head the breakdown, but yeah.
The breakdown was basically, we had about an extra $60,000 of MFT dollars to be able to be spent. So we paired that with $60,000 of the suggested $165 that was set aside from the sales tax to be able to utilize to add some more, add another street in this aspect.
Okay. Very good. Other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Jeffers.
I have one item tonight, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that resolution number 1819-010, hereto attached, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a new 2019 Ford F-250 3/4-ton service truck for the Water Department from Upstream Ford in the amount of $33,777 be approved. And that's this resolution number 1819-010 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Call.
Thank you, Commissioner Call. With the purchase of this vehicle, we cascade down the line several trucks in use, and it ends up the one at the bottom, I think, is 25 years old, basically, that we're working down. And just a little side note, we've talked about solid waste. This is for the Water Department purchase, but this will free up a better truck for delivery of some of the garbage totes we have in the solid waste department in Public Works. So it's a combination there. I found it interesting in the notes that this will not be delivered until the fall, but this would be a 2019 model. There was a 2017 on the lot down at Uftrings here in East Peoria that they could have sold us for another $3,000 more than this one. So we're waiting about 6 months to get a 2019 and save $3,000. So that's good. But we were able to get the government price through a local dealer, and that's this will service. It does have utility bed on it for service, and will be a great addition to the Public Works Water Department.
Other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Devers. Commissioner Call.
Mr. Mayor, I have two items this evening. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that Resolution Number 1819-009, hereto attached a resolution authorizing and directing the payment of an invoice to Image Trend, Inc. for the software licensing services for fiscal year 2018-2019 for running and administering many operational aspects of the fire department in the amount of $12,148.85 be approved, and that this resolution number 1819-009 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Densberger.
Thank you, Commissioner Densberg. As this states, approximately 2 years ago, we switched software, and this is what we utilize to generate fire and EMS reports. And this is an annual fee that's part of that program.
Other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Resolution number 1819-011. Whereas Fire Chief Alan Service has submitted his resignation for retirement purposes, and whereas Chief Service last day of service to the fire department will be May 15, 2018, and whereas pending the appointment of a new fire chief, it is necessary to make an interim appointment to fire chief within the fire department. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that John Knapp is hereby appointed as interim fire chief until such time as the City Council selects and appoints a permanent replacement for chief service. Mr. Mayor, I move you that resolution number 1819-011 be adopted as presented.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Densberger.
Thank you, Commissioner Densberger. So Big Al's last day was today.
He's not here.
And the good news about that is the open burning ends today as well. So out with him and out with the burning. But nonetheless, we appreciate his 25-plus years of service, which we gave him some accolades here at the last meeting. And I'm very pleased that Mr. Knapp will be stepping into this role effective about 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. He'll be sworn in.
Very good. Other discussion?
Mayor, because of my employment with the fire department, I'm going to abstain. I am looking forward to working with Chief Knapp. I've known him for a long time. Was in high school band with him. So we've known each other a long time.
Very good. Congratulations, Chief. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Abstain.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
I have 4 ayes and 1 abstention, Your Honor.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you very much. Public comments from the audience. Anybody want to speak to the council? Seeing no one come forward, comments from the council. Commissioner Decker.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Commissioner Densberger.
I've talked enough, Your Honor.
You have. Commissioner Jeffers.
I
Thank
feel like I
you.
should say something. I would say this, I know it's East Peoria, but I was able to attend the annual banquet for the Southside Mission of Peoria, and they're celebrating 93 years of service to, basically, it's their area there on the south end of Peoria, but they do serve other areas really indirectly, and it's a community thing, and our people can donate and to their services, and I have a chance to, I volunteer there, my wife works there, so, but I will say it was a great time. We had a great speaker, Dr. John Perkins, quite a great history of this man. I'm glad he came to the area. I had a chance to meet him personally, and I've got his autobiography. I'm looking forward to reading it, so that was good, but I do appreciate this time of year as well, so that's all I'll say.
Commissioner Call.
Yeah, just a couple of points of interest. Next Wednesday, May 23rd, at 6:30, from 6:30 until 8 p.m. down here at the Civic Plaza, Assistant Chief, Fire Chief Ryan Beck has put together an opioid crisis town hall meeting. And we encourage anybody that's interested to come down and learn more about the crisis. And quite honestly, it's going to include a number of different people from different facets, if you will, discussing what is truly an epidemic and a crisis regionally. So I encourage people to stop in, and if you have 2 cents or ways that you think that are beneficial in curbing this, now would be the time to join in and speak up. So I encourage everyone to be here. Once again, that's next Wednesday, May 23rd, 6:30 to 8, here at the Civic Plaza. And then just want to say how much I appreciate Doug and his staff. I know the IESA had the track meet. Part of it was last weekend, you got another part coming up this weekend. And there's a tremendous amount of work that goes behind that, and we appreciate it. Brings lots of folks to town. So I encourage those that live here, if you don't have a reason to go up there, I would avoid it.
Stay away, that's right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
But we greatly appreciate all your work and efforts.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn, please?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn until Tuesday evening, June 5th, 2018 at 6 PM.
Second, please.
Second.
Commissioner Call, discussion, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Densberger?
Aye.
Jeffers?
Aye.
Call?
Aye.
Mayor Mingus?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
We are adjourned. Thank you.